Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival. This is our 37th year, and we have some amazing programming this year. As always, we have a great assortment of short films from around the world. One of the films that we all enjoyed this year was Bleach, which was part of our international shorts, which screened on Friday and is streaming through this week. It is a film that I think people will be talking about, and it's incredibly well made. Let's meet the director, Daniel. Daniel, thanks so much for talking to us.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good. So excited to have Bleach as part of the festival. We were also excited to find out about that.
And I
Uh,
think
yeah,
I think it was the U.S. premiere.
it was. Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
thank you so much. We're honored. How did this film come up?
So it was an interesting process because um, so I didn't write the film. It's one of the few films I've directed which I haven't written. It was written by my friend Alfie. We made it at film school together at the National Film and Television School, which is a film school in the UK. And I was looking to, I'd made a series of films before this, which are all very still and kind of quiet, tender films.
Yeah.
And I often make films about intimacy and about love, but I wanted to make something which was a lot more raw and a lot more to do with digital technology and intimacy and relationships and how that conflicts with kind of the digital sphere and how tech and apps are kind of influencing our relationships. And I wanted it tonally and visually to be extremely digital and raw and honest and this very visceral, something less story driven and a bit more kind of feelings driven, a bit more poetic. And I kind of started with that, and I was looking for a character or a story that would kind of allow me to explore that world as a director. And Alfie had pitched, so in film school, the writers kind of pitch a few ideas to the directors. So Alfie had pitched this idea about this queer man who is addicted to working out and is addicted to kind of cleaning up his stuff with bleach and um, is kind of on this journey of this kind of sexual spiral, whatever you want to call it. And anyway, when I read that pitch, it was kind of more of just the character and the vibe of the pitch just felt really suitable to what I was trying to do.
Mhm.
So we spoke about it and we seemed really on the same page about the kind of film we wanted to make and to try and get the film to be something, again, quite visceral and quite something that's more to do with a feeling as opposed to any plot. I actually made a playlist for Alfie of 10, 15 songs, which I think really captured the spirit of the film. So one of the songs, for example, was like Closer by Nine Inch Nails,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So quite aggressive, raw things, but also mixed in with some songs which were quite tender,
Hmm.
some slower acoustic songs, so to kind of pierce through the kind of aggression of some of the music. And Alfie then came up with this script. And to be honest with you, the first draft was, I would say, 95% of what the final film was. His first draft so on point and uh was so exactly right that that's how the film kind of came to be.
How would you describe Lloyd?
That's a good question. Lloyd is someone who I think he's kind of extremely vulnerable and has built up this shell um, and this armor on the outside to kind of protect himself from getting hurt. And as a result, he really craves intimacy, which I hope is kind of like clear from the moment he kind of first grasps Gabriel, that man he finds at the start.
Hmm.
He craves that intimacy, but at the same time, nothing terrifies him more. And he's kind of with armor up around him to kind of yeah, kind of push away anyone getting to really know him. And me and Alfie also discussed, obviously there's a lot he does in the film that is quite extreme, and there's a question of why. And people we talk to do say to us like, why did he do this? Why did he do that? There's quite these extreme acts, and we decided that those who get get it will get it, and those who
Yeah.
um don't get it, won't get it, and that's fine. But we felt like this kind of internalized queer shame that
Yeah.
Lloyd suffers from, and this kind of sense of yeah, we kind of talked about it as like there's a like his secret being this like part of himself he's never learned to love,
Yeah.
and the way that that kind of expresses itself is in this need to kind of feel clean all the time. So we didn't want to over explain that. We kind of wanted to show it and then let those who connect to it. And then if it alienates some people, that's also okay. But we kind of wanted to like not explain a feeling, but show a feeling. So yeah, to describe Lloyd, he's got a part of himself that he's extremely ashamed of, that
Hmm.
he's put up this armor around to protect himself, so he doesn't have to reveal that. And there's an element of kind of performative kind of masculinity to what he does, and yeah, I guess that's it.
You know, society, gay society is a lot different when I was growing up, and the grinder element, the hookup element of our society now. I mean, that's certainly out there. And I thought this film did a really masterful job of showing that, yeah, there is an allure there. There's a sexiness to all this, but there's also, it can, there's sort of a dark side to this as well. Can you sort of talk about that?
So to be completely frank with you, I'm actually not queer.
Okay.
So a lot of my role in this film was trying to be was two things. Firstly, it was trying to truthfully as possible translate Alfie's feelings from his script,
Yeah.
which seemed to match the type of film I wanted to make, was to truthfully translate that. But the second thing was there was so much in what me and Alfie spoke about that I completely related to. The apps have kind of affected all of our relationships, straight or queer, and with porn out there as well. I think when I was speaking to Alfie, there was so much about it which I felt was actually kind of universal. And so the reason I'm saying that is because in talking about what you're saying about kind of the grind and the apps and the kind of allure and the dark side, um, that is something that I completely relate to myself as a straight guy,
Hmm.
and in watching this film, and making this film, that was something I was um, really thinking about, was the allure of being able to go out there and meet as many people as possible and have all these sexual relationships that are kind of meaningless. Um, but then the way that that kind of makes it incredibly hard when you do want to be intimate with someone
Yeah.
to trust that feeling or to kind of lean into it, because that kind of part of your brain, I feel, kind of starts to basically sex and emotion start to separate the more kind of casual sex you have. I feel, and at some and especially with porn as well, when you're kind of alone in your room and you're kind of indulging all these kind of fantasies by yourself, eventually when you do connect with someone, your relationship with them sexually can be kind of confusing, or at least I found at the beginning, because you're so used to kind of being selfish in a way with sex, and
Hmm.
kind of it being this purely indulgent thing, and it's not something you kind of it's no longer a mechanism to connect with someone. So when you do want it to be a mechanism to connect with someone, you kind of don't really know how. So I kind of feel like in Bleach, that's kind of the climax of the film in a way, is that Lloyd is trying to reject this person who's trying to get to know him, and eventually, when the person does come over, he doesn't know how to connect with him sexually in a way that's actually intimate. He can only connect with him in a way sexually that is distancing and is indulgent, because that's kind of the spiral he's allowed himself to get into.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was something that was really that I really related to, and that Alfie really related to, and we felt was like a really good bridge between us. Um, and speaking to Alfie about particularly queer communities, I mean, it sounds like um, especially when, it's all men, that can be almost heightened as a dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it when you talked about shame because when I watched the film, I was like, this is very much about shame and what a lot of gay men go through. What's it like watching this film with an audience?
Well, I'd love for you to tell me how it was.
Okay.
I went, so the film premiered at the Iris Prize,
Yes, yes.
and I went there, and that was so interesting because that was the first time I had outside of film school that
Yeah,
I had watched an audience. But in film school, people kind of see the process, so they kind of know what it is by the time they get there. Whereas in a festival, no one knows what they're about to watch.
yeah,
And at the Iris Prize, it was so interesting. It was like people are very audible in the audience for sure. There's a lot of nervous laughter at points. Some people are covering their faces. But what I think definitely happened at Iris Prize is that there's a lot of almost audience engagement
yeah,
during film. But when it gets to the end, that climax,
yeah,
complete silence. And when the credits roll, complete silence. And I think that's nice that it lands where it should land, I think.
yeah.
But I'm so curious to hear how it played here. Or there, I should say.
Well, I'll tell you, like when our committee watched it, a lot of movies that I watch blindly. I don't necessarily read a description before. I just like to experience it cold. And it's a very emotional film, and it's very powerful. And our committee felt the same way, and we were like, this is really powerful, but um, it just it's very, and but we all wanted to show it, but it was it hits really hard. I mean, it's a film that I don't think I'll ever forget. Do you find that because of its nature, its graphic nature, and because of the climax, which you mentioned, do you find that some festivals have been a little skittish about screening this?
Totally, totally. I think that so it has been also, it's been incredibly divisive. Even at the
Yeah.
Iris Prize, it was very divisive.
Mm.
And I definitely think we've got tons of rejections, especially from a bunch of like British festivals that I've been to before. And most
Yeah.
festivals look to bring back filmmakers, but with this film, I feel like that doesn't really apply. So I felt a lot of rejection uh from British film audiences, and um I also there's a lot of narratives right now. I mean, if you look at even out on film, your title is Queer Joy, and that for good reason and for a lot of reasons that makes complete sense. That is very much what people want to see a lot of the time right now because we have had a lot of stories about queer pain,
Hmm.
and we're kind of all of us kind of used to that narrative. So I think there's also and the world's also in a dark place right now. So do we really need to be adding super dark films, super confrontational films like this to into people's experience? I've heard that a lot, those kinds of things. So when we made the film, the whole time we said we knew this was going to be divisive, and we knew that those who get it will love it, and those who are turned off by it can very much hate it, and
Yeah.
that's okay. We're not making a film for everyone. But what's funny is that as a filmmaker, I feel like when you're making the film, you just want to make the film in your mind
Yeah.
and you don't
Exactly.
think about the audience. And then the moment it comes out and people are rejecting it, you're like, oh, actually, I do want people to accept it. And
Yeah.
it is a shame that a lot of people are turned off by it. But
It's ironic because our theme this year is queer joy, and there's not um this film was divisive even within our committee, within our programming team, but ultimately said that, even though this isn't about overt joy, it's so well made and the images are just so unforgettable. And it's something that we all deal with shame. And this is something that is prevalent in our community and not talked about a lot. We all thought that it was a very, very important film to screen. And we just, we're kind of curious. We're curious as everyone how what our audiences are going to think. Our audiences have been, a little divided so far, and then as they watch the streaming version, I'd be curious. But a lot of people have very much liked this, so I'm very very glad that we're showing it. What are you working on next?
So I'm working on a few different things at the moment. So I graduated film school in Feb, and I'm living in London. I'm writing a lot of things. I've got no plans to make I've got no like funding in place to make a short immediately,
Okay.
but the next short that is being developed is actually um funnily enough, it's another queer film that so at the Iris Prize where Bleach premiered, I met a producer there who had a film there as well. And he pitched to me a film about so I'm Jewish, and he
Hmm.
pitched to me a film about a young Jewish teenager in a Jewish secondary school who is engaging in an illicit kind of relationship with his teacher, with his male teacher. And again, I'm not writing this one, but I'm developing it with a writer, and we've taken the short pretty far. I mean, the short is pretty much written at the moment, so we are looking for the funding.
Okay.
Um, but the kind of tone of it is one which is a bit more acerbic, a bit more like Shiver Baby, where it has this kind of funny, dark humor to it. But it's also about, again, a teenager dealing with a lot of vulnerability and kind of trying to hide it through humor and sexuality.
Okay.
So
Great.
so I think that'll be what's next.
Great. We look forward to that. All right. The film is Bleach. It is part of our international shorts block. It is a very powerful film. It is very unforgettable. I look forward to those who didn't see it at the screening last week to watch it this week. Daniel, thanks for bringing this film to our attention, and thanks for talking to us today.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.